Welcome to another session of Studio Time, and this segment is called You Got Us Thinking, and this is where we share different insights around comments that leaders and teams and organizations have said to us. So today we're going to talk about the yin and yang or dualism inside organizations. So I'm going to share out my whiteboard and we'll get started. So let's talk about this a little bit. We're going to, as I say, the thing that we're going to talk about today is the yin and yang. And it's probably a symbol that you're used to seeing is the yin and yang symbol. And this comes from Chinese philosophy, probably dating back to about 300 BC. And the essence of it, so why would we want to even be talking about it or thinking about it? Well, what we have noticed by working with organizations that there's always these elements that are seen as contrary. And in the idea of dualism, that these two parts that tend to be contradictory to one another. Well, if we look at that, let's think about that in the concept of you have A and B. And so these might be, a dualism a simple one is large versus small. So that's what we're tending to looking at. Or let's look at it as cards of groups. So us and them might be a way to look at this. And part of that is the natural tendency of these things when they are seen as contradictory is they tend to want to separate themselves. But if we leave them to that, what can start to happen is then they can sometimes become divisive. And so it's not as much about us and them, it's now us versus them. And this starts to be a constraint. But what happens if we take this Chinese philosophy of the yin and yang and we purposely push those two pieces together? And now this has to be intentional because the natural tendency is to do this. But what if we intentionally start to push them together? Now it can come to us with them. And that is a little different for folks. So now we say, well, let's push it a little bit further. What happens if we say us in balance with them? Now you start to see, well, if you're starting to work with that, now you might be able to say, well, let's take that into, now that it represents the yin and yang symbol, to where if you push these things together, how can they actually create opportunity when they're put together? But in our models that we're working with organizations, it's all about movement. It's all about being kinesthetic, or can I generate momentum? See if I get the spelling right. And if you draw that this way, this concept of, well, what if I actually engage that to move? So take two opposing parts that normally want to separate, intentionally push them together and now create opportunity from it. And then what about if you were to energize them and to create momentum? So as our videos go forward, we're going to be talking about a couple aspects of these in some follow-up videos on this dualism series. One is the idea of strategy and culture. Rarely addressed in a unison, but oftentimes separated, as we'll do strategy work, we'll do culture work. The other one that we're going to take a look at is analytic in dualism to the creative. And one more that we're going to look at is the idea of risk to opportunity. So these are, once again, tune into other videos about us talking about these things. I'm going to draw you back to a closeout slide here at the whiteboard. And so this, what are the dualisms that are happening within your company? And what's the opportunity of beginning your sprint around these? And what are the A's and B's that you can start to push together to create opportunity and then create momentum? So send us other ideas down here at our link, the Morse group, or go visit our website and give us your ideas that you'd like for us to think about and address in these topics. Thank you again for tuning in, and go ahead and subscribe to this thread in our channel and our playlist, and we look forward to seeing you next time.